How to be stubborn. A raw guide for people who care too much. What others think the problem with you right now. Let's be honest about what's actually happening. You're not weak. You're not a pushover by nature. You're someone who has learned, probably over many years, that keeping the peace, being agreeable and shrinking yourself a little bit is safer than standing firm. Maybe you got criticized when you were younger, and it stuck. Maybe someone you respected shot down your ideas enough times that you started pre-rejecting yourself before they got the chance. Maybe you just live in a world that rewards social smoothness over raw conviction. But here's what that's costing you. Every time you abandon your position because someone looked at you sideways, you send a message to your own nervous system. My instincts can't be trusted. Every time you change your plan because someone doubted it out loud, you practice the skill of self-betrayal, and you get very good at what you practice. The result? You become someone who lives by committee, someone whose goals have 1,000 co-authors but no real owner, someone who wakes up years later and realizes the life they're living was basically crowdsourced, and the crowd didn't know them at all. That ends here. Let's talk about how to actually build stubbornness from the inside out. Part 1. Understand what real stubbornness is. Most people think stubbornness is about ego, about being the loudest person in the room, about refusing to listen. That's not stubbornness. That's insecurity wearing a costume. Real stubbornness, the kind that builds careers, holds boundaries, and changes lives, is something much quieter and much more powerful. It is the capacity to remain committed to what you believe is right, even when the social environment is pushing you in a different direction. Psychologists call the underlying trait autonomy. The sense that your behavior comes from your own values rather than external pressure. Research by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, who developed self-determination theory, found that autonomy is one of the core psychological needs humans have. When you act from your own values, your motivation is deeper, your resilience is higher, and your mental health is significantly better. When you act primarily to manage how others see you, you're running on borrowed fuel. It runs out fast. The stubborn people you admire, the ones who built something real, held a line under pressure, or changed their circumstances against the odds. They weren't ignoring other people. They were just filtering differently. They listened to feedback, but they decided for themselves what to do with it. That's the whole game. Part 2. Why you care so much. And why that's not your fault. Before you can stop over-caring, you need to understand why it happens. This isn't about blame, it's about mechanics. Human beings are wired for social approval, full stop. For most of our evolutionary history, being rejected by the group was a death sentence. You didn't survive alone on the savannah. So the brain developed a powerful threat detection system specifically for social disapproval. When someone criticizes you, dismisses you, or signals that they don't respect your choices, your brain lights up in the same regions that process physical pain. This isn't metaphorical. Studies by Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA using fMRI imaging confirmed that social rejection activates the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same region activated by physical pain. So when someone rolls their eyes at your idea and you suddenly want to backpedal, that's not you being pathetic. That's a 200,000-year-old alarm system doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that alarm system was calibrated for a world where the stakes were life and death. It was not calibrated for a world where your coworker disagrees with your project plan, or your family thinks your career choice is unconventional, or strangers on the internet have opinions about your life. Your brain is treating a raised eyebrow like a spear. No wonder you flinch. Knowing this doesn't make the feeling go away, but it does let you put it in its place. When you feel that pull to cave, to soften your stance, to suddenly agree, you can recognize it. That's the alarm. The alarm is not the truth. Part 3. The 4 pillars of stubbornness. Pillar 1. Know what you actually stand for. You cannot be stubborn about things you've never decided on. This sounds obvious. It isn't. Most people go through life with fuzzy, half-formed values they've never actually examined. They think they want success, but they've never defined what success means to them specifically. They think they want respect, but they've never drawn a line that defines where their self-respect starts. So when pressure comes, when someone challenges them or disapproves, they have nothing concrete to hold on to. The first act of building real stubbornness is clarification. Sit down, not in your head, on paper, and answer these questions with brutal specificity. What am I trying to build in the next 3 years, and why does it actually matter to me? What are 3 things I will not compromise on, regardless of who's watching? What decisions have I made recently that I'm genuinely proud of, independent of what anyone else thought? Write the answers down. This is not a journaling exercise for its own sake. This is you creating an internal reference point, a fixed star you can navigate by when the social weather gets rough. Stubbornness is only possible when you have something to be stubborn for. Pillar 2. Separate useful feedback from social noise. Here's the nuance that separates healthy stubbornness from self-destructive rigidity. Not all pushback is created equal. Some pushback contains real information. A colleague points out a flaw in your plan that you hadn't considered. A friend tells you your behavior hurt them. A mentor shows you a better approach. This is feedback that deserves your full attention. Other pushback is just social noise. Someone's discomfort with your choices, someone's preference that you stay the same, someone's need to feel smart by poking holes. This deserves polite acknowledgement and nothing more. The stubborn person has a filter. Every time you get pushback, run it through 2 questions. 1. Does this person have relevant knowledge or skin in the game? A friend with no business experience telling you your startup idea is risky carries very different weight than a mentor who has built 3 companies saying the same thing. Adjust accordingly. 2. Is this feedback about the idea or about their feelings about the idea? I've thought about it, and here's why your timeline won't work, is about the idea. I just don't think you're really that kind of person, is about feelings. One deserves engagement. One deserves a polite nod and no internal real estate. The stubborn person listens to everything, decides what's useful, and moves on. The person who cares too much what others think treats every opinion like a verdict. Pillar 3. Get comfortable in the gap. This is the one nobody tells you about. There is a gap, sometimes a very long one, between when you commit to something and when the results prove you right. In that gap, the doubters are loudest. In that gap, the evidence seems to support their skepticism. In that gap, caving feels completely rational. Angela Duckworth's research on grit found that the distinguishing factor between people who achieved long-term goals and those who didn't wasn't talent. It wasn't even raw effort. It was the ability to sustain commitment through the gap, through the period of sustained effort with no visible payoff. And what makes that gap unbearable for you specifically? Other people's doubt. Because you're using external signals to measure internal progress. When they look confident in you, you feel on track. When they express doubt, you feel lost. You need to build your own internal metrics, daily ones, small ones. Not, has the business succeeded, but did I do the work today? Not, do people respect my boundaries? But did I hold my boundary today even once? Not, am I winning? But am I showing up consistently with my values? The gap becomes survivable when you stop trying to read your progress through other people's faces. Pillar 4. Pay the social cost deliberately. Here's the hardest truth. Being stubborn will cost you something socially, sometimes a small amount, sometimes a lot. People will be irritated that you won't back down. Some will call you difficult. Some will pull away. Some relationships built on your compliance will not survive your stubbornness. This isn't a bug, it's a feature, but only if you've decided the cost is worth it. The person who cares too much about what others think is not actually afraid of their disapproval. They're afraid of the disapproval, and they haven't consciously decided that their goal is worth more than the approval. So the equation is always tilted. You have to flip that by making the decision explicitly, in advance. I am willing to have this person be disappointed in me in order to hold this boundary, pursue this goal, make this choice. Say it out loud, write it down. Because when the moment comes and you feel the social pressure, you need to be able to remember, I already decided. This was already accounted for. Soldiers don't recalculate whether to be brave on the battlefield. They made the decision beforehand. You have to make your decisions beforehand too, before the emotional weather comes in. Part 4. Practical moves for every area of your life in your personal goals and habits. Stop announcing your goals to people who haven't earned the right to have opinions on them. Research by Peter Gollwitzer at NYU found that announcing goals to others can actually reduce your motivation to pursue them, because the social acknowledgement gives your brain a taste of the reward prematurely. But more relevant to you, every announcement is also an invitation for pushback, doubt, and unsolicited advice from people who don't carry the consequences. Protect your goals like classified information in the early stages. Let the results speak. When you do get unsolicited opinions on your habits and personal choices, practice the one-sentence close. I appreciate it, I've thought about it, and I'm going to stick with my approach. No debate, no defending, no explaining. The explanation is an invitation for a counter-argument. The one-sentence close is a door shutting politely but firmly. In your work and career, the workplace is specifically designed to sand down your edges. Consensus culture, team alignment, let's get everyone on board. These are often genuinely useful norms, but they become traps for the person who already struggles with external approval, because they provide institutional justification for caving. Build the habit of writing your position down before group discussions. Before a meeting where your idea might get challenged, write one paragraph. What you believe, why you believe it, and what evidence would actually change your mind. Then bring that into the room as your anchor. The stubborn professional doesn't dig in out of ego. They dig in because they've thought it through, and the counter-arguments haven't actually moved the needle. When you're overruled, and sometimes you will be, disagree and commit. State your position clearly once, note that you're moving forward with the group decision, and then actually give the group decision your full effort. This is not caving. This is mature professionalism. The difference between this and what you're fighting is that you stated your position. You didn't dissolve it to make the room comfortable. In your relationships and boundaries, this is where caring too much about others' opinions does the most damage, and where stubborn clarity does the most good. A boundary is not a wall. It is a statement of what you will and won't accept, rooted in your own values and needs. When you state a boundary and then abandon it because someone is unhappy, you haven't kept the peace. You've trained them that your limits are negotiable. You've also taught yourself that your needs are subordinate to their comfort. The next time you set a boundary and feel the pull to soften it, ask yourself, is this boundary rooted in something real? My health, my values, my time, my self-respect? If yes, the other person's unhappiness is information about their preferences. It is not evidence that your boundary is wrong. People who care too much about others' opinions often confuse someone being upset with someone being right. These are completely different things. Someone can be genuinely hurt that you said no, and your no can still be the correct answer. Repeat the boundary calmly. Don't escalate, don't apologize for having the boundary, and don't expand the explanation. Each additional sentence you give is perceived, consciously or not, as a crack in the wall that pressure might open further. Part 5. The identity shift. Everything above is tactics. Tactics work. But the deepest change happens when you make a shift at the level of identity. Right now, some part of you identifies as a person who takes others' feelings into account, who doesn't rock the boat, who is considerate and agreeable. Those are not bad things, but they've fused with something unhealthy. The idea that your own position has less inherent value than other people's comfort. You need to build a new identity layer. I am someone who knows what they stand for and holds it, not someone who ignores people, someone who has processed what others think, made a decision, and stands behind it. This doesn't happen from reading a script. It happens from taking small, stubborn actions repeatedly and letting each one confirm the identity. You hold one boundary in a conversation that made you uncomfortable. You notice you survived. You keep your original plan despite one person doubting it. You notice the doubt didn't kill you. Slowly, the evidence accumulates. I can take the social cost and be fine. Psychologist Carol Dweck's work on mindset shows that identity is not fixed. It's built through the interpretation of experience. You are not someone who inherently can't be stubborn. You are someone who has practiced compliance more than conviction. You can practice differently starting now. The closing. You will still care what some people think. The people you love, the people whose judgment is earned, the people who have proven they want what's best for you. Their opinions deserve real weight. That's not a weakness, that's wisdom. But the crowd, the critics, the doubters, the casual observers, the people who are uncomfortable simply because you're doing something they didn't predict, they don't get a vote on your life. Be stubborn about the things that matter. Be stubborn about your goals when the path is hard. Be stubborn about your boundaries when someone pushes. Be stubborn about your career choices when people don't understand them. Be stubborn about who you are becoming when the person you used to be was easier for everyone around you. The world will adjust. It always does. Now stop waiting for permission. You were never going to get it.